Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Everything You Need to Know About Google AdWords. I'm so accustomed to saying good morning, but I think we have people joining us literally from everywhere across the world today, which is awesome. So welcome. Let me just get the slide up there. That's the welcome slide. Just so you know, I'm serious about this, and I want you to feel comfortable. So I am Ryan Ingley. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Unbounce, and I think I've had the chance to talk to tons of you. I mean, most of you received the invite from me, though we have a bunch of special guests from Trada as well. So if you want to tweet at me today or follow me on Twitter, my handle is Ryan_Angley. And joining me is my Unbounce webinar partner in crime, Ollie Gardner.
Hi, everybody.
So Ollie is one of the co-founders here at Unbounce. He's our creative director. And same thing, on Twitter, you can find him as Ollie Gardner.
And you should all follow me because we have a contest going in the office.
Actually, Ollie already won that contest, but he just can't let things go. So for him, that contest is going for as long as Twitter is around. And just a quick question. Can everyone hear okay? We had a couple issues with our audio earlier, and a few people are saying that it's a little bit quiet. Okay, awesome. And last but not least is our guest of honor. So we've got Anna Sawyer from Trada. She's their social media and marketing manager, content queen, and auteur. And she is on Twitter as Anna F. Sawyer.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you, Ollie and Ryan, and visitors. Looking forward to talking about AdWords, my hands down favorite topic in the universe.
I think it's not just you. I think actually pretty much our entire customer base is super interested in AdWords. This is far and away the most registrants we've had to one of our webinars. So either it's you and your magnetic personality, Anna, or AdWords is just, the topic of the day.
Hey, it could be me too.
Let's hope
Yeah,
we
you're
can fulfill the prophecy here and make everyone happy. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, guys.
So we've got tons and tons of content to go through. We had lots of awesome questions pre-submitted. We're going to be making time for Q&A, live Q&A after that. And then at the end, Anna's going to give just a little bit of an overview about Trada. She's going to chat just a bit about the services that they offer. But you know what, Anna, I'm going to hand it over to you. So we'll go ahead and get started and kick it off, because I know you prepped a few questions beforehand, and I happen to have some slides here.
Yep, great. Thanks. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, I work for Trada. Trada is the world's only performance-based paid search marketplace. And what that means is that we have a community of experts who live around the world who are experts at doing paid search. And so I work for Trada for the marketing department. I do a lot of things here, but one of the things is that I work as an AdWords educator. So I spend a lot of time talking about AdWords, training internally, talking to our paid search experts and doing webinars. So the questions that we thought we would kick the webinar off with actually come from conversations that we've had with a lot of paid search marketers like yourselves. So these are things that are really top of mind for people about AdWords in 2013 specifically. You know, there's a lot of information out there about AdWords, but AdWords is constantly changing. In fact, the AdWords algorithm is changed around 500 times per year. And we actually have some really big changes going on this year, which I got a lot of questions from you guys about as you submitted. And so we're going to address just some really sort of high level, but at the same time in depth, if you can believe that, questions and topics that are really, like I said, top of mind for marketers right now. So let's kick it off with our first question here.
All right, here we go. First question, what's more important? Is it bid price, ad copy, or would it be the landing page?
So quality score is comprised of many elements, and actually I believe on the next slide we have a little infographic that I pulled from one of our Trada pieces of collateral. At the end of the day, quality score comes down to the fact that Google wants to give users a good user experience. In the early days of the internet, or even as many as, just 10 years ago, there were all these big flashing ridiculous ads with exclamation points and all kinds of stuff. You can still find those if you go to certain types of websites. But the thing is, Google wants you to use Google. And so they encourage advertisers to make their ads relevant to what they're actually offering. And they do this by making it so that you don't just get the best ad position by paying the most. They reward you, yes, for paying the most, but they also reward you for other things. And it generally comes down to relevance. So I actually would like to pose a question to you, which I will then immediately answer, which is, so we have all these different things. We have, your account history. We have the relevance of your keyword to your ads, to your landing page, to the search query. Then we also have click-through rate. So keep in mind that Google is the boss here. If you were Google, which element would you weight to be the most important? Ryan, Ollie, do you have any thoughts?
Sorry, we got stuck doing some audio there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Biased.
Well, I'll give you a hint, which is that Google is a business and they are trying to make money. So while they do not release how heavily weighted each element of the score is, we can assume, and based on lots of research done by many external sources, that click-through rate is the most important. Google wants to get clicks, right? Exactly. Google makes money when clicks happen, and so they care a lot about click-through rate. Now, it doesn't mean that the relevance factors don't matter a lot, because they do. And another important thing to note is that these published quality score factors are not all of the factors. Google is constantly testing new factors. They're changing the weight around. Like I said, they are changing their algorithm around 500 times per year. So it is a little bit of a mystery, and it probably always will be. But just common sense suggests that you should care more about click-through rate than anything else.
Yeah, man. I mean, if they're changing their algorithm of 500 times per year, I mean, how many factors could that be? Obviously, way more than this.
Yeah, I mean, it could be many different things. I mean, they're changing the way their platform works. This is just a statistic that I actually recently read on Search Engine Land, I believe, and it actually shows all the algorithm changes over the last 10 years by year, and it is an average of 500. So the most important thing to really worry about is click-through rate, but it is imperative that you think about all the elements of quality score to have a truly well-tuned campaign. And the only way to get the most out of using AdWords is to have a well-tuned campaign. So let's move to the next slide. I actually don't know if it's more. Okay. How does Google score a landing page? So this is something we're going to talk a lot about landing pages today and how to make sure that your content and is good for both conversions and for quality score. But one thing that's important to note is that landing pages are scored in two different ways. The thing we'll talk about the most here is landing page content. So keeping in mind that Google wants everything you do in your ad campaign to be very relevant. They want you to write an ad that attracts a user, and when that user clicks on the ad, it takes them to the place the user wants to go. And so they reward this by if your landing page copy is relevant to the keywords which are relevant to the search term. So this is the thing we'll talk about the most today, but believe it or not, they do also score you on design and development. Now, it's really just a penalty, so if you have some sort of scary, bad website, if you're doing phishing, or if you have, pages of just ads, that's one of the things that they will penalize. They don't care at all about aesthetics. So sometimes we see landing pages that look terrible, but they actually could be good for quality score. Now, Ollie and Ryan are saying, oh no, don't make your landing page look terrible. And they're right, because we also want to optimize for conversion, which we'll talk a lot about more later. But Google doesn't fundamentally care what your landing page looks like.
Well, I mean, the two of those aren't mutually exclusive. Brian Massey, for example, the kind of conversion scientist, I've read stuff by him where he argues that it's a case where form follows function. If your landing page is doing its job and if it's converting, it doesn't necessarily need to be the prettiest thing on earth, especially since it's your conversion rate that really counts more than anything else.
Yep,
And
that's absolutely true.
if you're critiquing a landing page, it helps for it to be really, really bad because it gives you more opportunity for improving it.
That's a good point. It's like getting a really slow first marathon time that you can always improve upon.
Just set the bar really low. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next question. I know we have a lot to cover here today.
All right. Okay, so how can I optimize my landing page for quality score, but also have it optimized for conversion? I know this is, Anna, this is probably one of the questions I receive the most from our users.
Me too, absolutely. And I would add in here that there is another element because you probably if your landing page is living on your website, you also want to have it be optimized for SEO. So a lot of these things go hand in hand, and some of them sort of battle. And I have a few examples here. If you want to go to the next slide.
Okay, there we go.
All right. So I actually pulled these examples from our How to Do PPC ebook that Trana published recently. But there are two basic rules that you can follow for both PPC and conversion. And let's look at this slide first, and then when we go to the next slide, we'll see where they sometimes tend to butt heads. And I think this is a good opportunity for myself and for Ollie to have a conversation. So the number one thing you can do that will boost your conversion rate, but will also boost your quality score, is to fulfill the promise in the ad. If the ad says lightweight aluminum canoes, send the searcher to a landing page that sells lightweight aluminum canoes, and then make it easy for them to buy. So the best thing that you can do is you can send someone to the place they want to go and then let them do the thing they want to do. Ollie, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I love the way you're covering a bunch of my answers. So,
Well, I'd love to hear you expound on this point.
um, well, I think going back to the last slide, there's a human factor and a machine factor. The human factor being the user experience when people get there, that's going to affect your conversion. Because if they get there and the message match is bad, like you just said, or there's not a good experience, they're just going to go away and then click on one of your competitors' ads. And then machine factor is obviously what Google's doing to rate your page.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I think we should go to the next slide and talk about when sometimes landing pages that are optimized for conversion may not be perfectly optimized for quality score. So sometimes conversion-centric design, and really the only way to know what design or what layout or what user experience gets you the most conversions is to find out on your own. We can tell you best practices all day about where to put things and how to write things, but A/B testing is the only way to figure out how you're going to get the highest conversion rate. And it's very possible that a landing page for you with the highest conversion rate is going to be one that has very little copy on the page itself. And you do actually need to have a certain amount of copy on the page in order to make your landing page optimized for quality score. Now, there are lots of sort of best practices out there about keyword density, but again, this all just comes down to making sure that there's a keyword that someone searches for, or excuse me, a search term that someone searches for, which connects to a keyword that you have in your campaign, which exists in an ad, and then also exists in the landing page. So for the most part, we can make everyone happy by having a landing page that is designed for conversion, but also has enough keyword density and has the correct keywords to be able to work for quality score. And if you find yourself suffering a little bit with quality score but doing much better with conversions, this is why it's a good idea to have a bigger picture view of how your campaign works on the whole. Because if you have to sacrifice one thing for another, but it gets you a better ROI in the end, then make the sacrifice. Ollie, what do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, I'm on the conversion end, so um, the more converted customers you get, the better. And yeah, at the end of the day, if it makes you more money, then I don't know, it's a no-brainer, really.
Exactly. So if you're getting more conversions and your quality score goes down a little, so you're paying a little bit more for clicks, if that ends up working out in your favor, then let it work in your favor. But at the end of the day, while conversion people and quality score people and SEO people are frequently kind of butting heads about what works the best for you is what works the best. And that can differ so greatly across so many different types of campaigns.
So when we're talking about, our, the cost per impression for AdWords and then our conversion rate, fundamentally we're chatting about our customer acquisition cost. And most people here will have a good idea of how to go through and, calculate that. But Anna, Ollie, for people who are so focused on, let's say, quality score or conversion rate, do you have any advice on how they can kind of step back and look at the big picture?
I do. I definitely don't want to verbally go into all the math here, but we actually just recently published a white paper about how to understand your lifetime value and your average order size and how to compare these against all of your other data, which, now that I've mentioned it, I would be happy to share in the follow-up. So I'll make sure that everyone gets that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if we mention any resources during the webinar, it's really difficult to link to them, obviously, impromptu, but we'll be sending out an email afterwards, and I'll make sure to include any resources we mention, for the next 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'll keep a running tally. So unless Ollie has any more comments about how to kind of, make sure that you bridge the gap or, understand the entire universe of quality score and conversion optimization, I think I may be ready to move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'd move on. There's some questions coming up for me where I'll cover more of the conversion side. Oh, and by the way, I love how you call us conversion people.
Your type of people. You're kind.
Yeah. Okay, one thing I'll say before we move on is just on the topic of conversion-centric design. We've actually got another ebook in the works. So keep your eyes open because we'll be going into that specific topic, much more in depth in the coming weeks.
Great. I look forward to that too. One of the things as a marketer is that, a lot of these things are just not naturally within our skill set. Like for me, conversion-centric design is something I can read a lot about, but I'm not a designer. So having these types of resources is immensely valuable.
Cool. Well, I'll send you a copy directly.
I can't wait.
By Ollie Gardner.
So this is a question that we get all the time. And having a low quality score is something that can be really depressing and frustrating for a marketer. Sometimes maybe you may have inherited a campaign that wasn't managed perfectly, or you may have just stopped optimizing. And one of the things about running an AdWords campaign is that it's not a set and forget type of solution. The best paid search marketers, and by that I mean the ones that get the best value out of their work, are the ones that spend really a lot of time optimizing. And optimizing means A/B testing, it means writing new ad copy, it means trying new markets, and it can be very daunting. And so one thing that comes from a lot of different factors is that your quality scores can go down. And as we know, when your quality score goes down, you end up paying more, or you end up not showing up on the first page. And if you're not showing up on the first page, you're not getting enough volume, and it can just be this whole big mess. So if you go to the next slide, I have some suggestions about what to do if you have really low quality scores. Now, one thing that is a pretty good, strong piece of advice, and this actually comes straight from Google. They were in our office recently, and we always ask them this question. Unless your quality scores are so dismal that they are literally unfixable, consider not opening a new account. So while the historical click-through rate and data of your campaign will affect your quality score for a long period of time, and that amount of time is not published, there are usually ways that you can take this data and fix your campaigns. So if there are any keywords in ads that are just utterly dismal, we suggest deleting or pausing them. We also suggest restructuring your ad groups. So a lot of times you'll have a sort of sickly ad group that is being made sickly by only one or two keywords that are not performing well. And because ad groups should be very small we usually suggest 10 to 20 keywords at the most. Sometimes pulling out those 2 keywords that are performing poorly and putting them into a new ad group and trying to optimize that new ad group can help improve your old ad group, and it will help you kind of breathe some life into those keywords that were performing poorly. Another thing that we suggest is building new landing pages with more relevant content, and I'd actually love to hear Ollie maybe talk about this a little bit. Do you see anyone doing this, Ollie, to help prepare their campaign?
Yeah, I mean, we were doing it. I'd suggest having one landing page for each ad group, so that you're not sending everything to the same landing page, which is a pretty terrible way to go about it. Your message match just won't be good, which is going to affect everything, the user experience, quality score. Well, ideally, you'd have a landing page for every ad, but that's kind of too much. So one per ad group is what I'd recommend.
Yeah, I would recommend that as well. And if you keep in mind that you'll probably only have 4 to maybe 6 ads in an ad group with a sort of A/B testing thing going on and some of them being paused, it will give you a very targeted campaign to have one landing page per ad group. And then finally, I actually skipped around a little bit here, but the third item is to increase the bid prices either temporarily or permanently. Now, there is this technique known as bid popping, which I have a theory may have actually been coined here by my coworker Matt Hessler at Trada. It's a well-known concept, but I think he is the one who calls it bid popping. And the idea
Every
here is
time
that
you say bid popping, Ollie does a bit of a shimmy, like a bit of a dance. So I'm pretty sure bid popping is going to be a meme by this afternoon.
oh, bid popping and locking. He's
So
playing it cool. So bid popping is where you have some keywords that are performing poorly, and if they're performing poorly, it means that they are falling off of that first page bid estimate. But remember that one of the most important and probably the most heavily weighted component of quality score is click-through rate. So if your ad is falling off the first page, then people aren't clicking on it, so it has a low click-through rate, which means that for all of the impressions that are happening, fewer people are clicking on it. So if you artificially increase the bid price for a short period of time to get it up onto that first page into the second, third, fourth position, you will increase the click-through rate, and that can help you increase your quality score. And once that click-through rate has increased and the quality score has increased, you can pull down the bid price, and your keyword may retain that quality score. So it can be a little risky, but it is definitely something that we suggest if what you're seeing is low quality scores that are pushing keywords and ads that matter a lot to you, that are converting well for you, off of that first page.
now, Anna, I'm going to rewind just a little bit because I think most people in this webinar have a good handle on quality score, but we've actually received a number of questions in our chat asking what is quality score? Where do I look it up? How do I even know, how it's affecting my pages? So, just quickly, can you maybe touch on that?
Absolutely. So quality score, as I mentioned, is a little bit of a mysterious brew. So we know what the elements are, and if you actually want to go, if you're interested, you could go back to that slide that has the elements of quality score on it, right there.
There we go.
And the ones that are the most important to think about here are the historical click-through rate of a keyword, the sort of overall account history, and then what is known as relevance. So the relevance of the keyword to the ad to the landing page. And quality score is actually calculated at the account level, at the keyword level, and at the ad level, but you can only see it at the keyword level, and you can see it by going into the keyword tab in AdWords and clicking on a little speech bubble. You can also, there's a way to create a custom quality score column, but one thing that's interesting is that we know that all of these elements are involved, and we're going to talk a lot about landing pages today, so like landing page quality, for example, but AdWords won't show you the granular landing page quality score. They keep this a bit of a mystery, but you can see, and when you're doing this optimization, let's go back down to this slide that shows you how to fix everything. I say in here that you should pause your bad keywords. Your bad keywords are the ones that just clearly have terrible quality score and are never going to convert for you. And I suggest doing an audit to start with every couple of weeks and then maybe once a month and then maybe quarterly to find out which keywords are in there poisoning your campaign. And, they may be just not converting at all, or they may just always have a bad quality score. And if they're not important to you, I suggest removing them or pausing them. So I
And
hope
just
that
to
gives you enough
jump,
of a,
sorry,
oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say that quality score is on a scale of 1 to 10, in case some people didn't know. What do you see as being like an average quality score or something you consider being good with
So
Google?
it's really unusual to have a quality score of 9 or 10. The only time you'll see a quality score of 9 or 10 is on branded keywords. So if your company is called Trada and you have a keyword that is Trada, you may have a 9 or 10 on that keyword. But for keywords where you have a competitive set, a good score could be a 6, 7, or 8. And frankly, if you have a quality score of 4, your keyword actually still could be performing well. So it really actually depends a lot upon your industry, and just the sort of general landscape of where you are in paid search. But I think Google says good quality scores are 7, 8, 9, 10, and then there's a sort of middle ground, and then 1, 2, 3 are quality scores that need performance. And if you are in those lower ranges, remember that the way you are suffering is that you are either paying more for clicks or you're being pushed off of that first page bid estimate, first page bid position. There we go.
No, Anna, I mean, you mentioned that historical click-through rate is one of the most important factors, for Google when calculating quality score. And I know I've spoken with customers before who have heard or read that it's a good idea to open a new account with AdWords if they, aren't doing super well. But I see that that's not, I mean, a piece of advice here. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Google says don't open a new account unless it's just utterly dismal. Now, I mean, this is what they're saying. So remember that they are a business and they're trying to make money. So I think it's good to accept information from other outlets. In my experience, quality scores can be addressed, and very, very low quality scores, or even quality scores that are low enough to make you feel like your campaign isn't tuned well, are the result of missing out on some very basic optimization practices. And while it is true that account history and historical CTR will affect your quality scores for a while, if you get enough data and good quality scores to overtake that, it is something that you can definitely overcome.
Awesome. I think that's a piece of news everyone here is happy to hear. All
Yes,
right, so let's
we can
move
do
on to the
it.
next question. I want to start advertising on mobile, so how should I set up my account?
So this is a this is a question that 2 weeks ago I would have answered differently. And I do want to take a little bit of time and talk about Google's new release, which is called Enhanced Campaigns. Literally just about 2 weeks ago, or actually I think maybe it was last week, Google made a really big announcement, and they announced that they're making a huge change to the way that campaigns are structured. And when everyone was signing up for the webinar, we got a ton of questions about enhanced campaigns. So I'll give you kind of a general overview of the way enhanced campaigns are going to work, and then I would love to answer more questions if you guys want to put some into the chat. So if you'll go down to the next slide, I pulled something out of a deck that Google shared with us. So in the past, you would have put the general best practice was to separate mobile campaigns from desktop campaigns because those types of users work differently. They look for different things. If you're looking for a pizza on your cell phone, you're probably looking to order a pizza with a number. And if you're looking for a pizza on your computer, your behavior is going to be different. But with this new release, Enhanced Campaigns, you actually can't have a mobile-only campaign anymore. Any keyword you want to bid on has to run on desktop computers and mobile devices. So like I said before, we would set up separate mobile campaigns within our AdWords accounts and run these strategies that were specific for mobile. And this has been the best practice that's been preached for a very long time. But this is no longer true. All accounts that have separate device campaigns will actually be force merged this year. And it's looking like this might happen in June. So this is a very bold move. Google says that they made this change to allow us to target searchers based on both context and keywords. And I will say that depending on where you are in the sort of paid search landscape, feelings about this are very mixed. More advanced advertisers who have spent all of this time building out these big mobile campaigns are angry because they feel like they've lost some control. But the truth is this is going to happen, so we need to be prepared for it. So there are a couple new words that we need to learn. We've always thought of mobile as meaning a mobile device like a iPhone. But Google is using the words mobile and static. So mobile is defined by Google as someone who is out and about rather than someone who's on a specific device. And static is someone who's at home or work, which Google says influences the way that they behave, and it's very hard to argue with that. Now, Google says that the device doesn't necessarily suggest the behavior. And an example that I was thinking of was there's some sort of statistic recently, which I'm going to flub, but some massive, massive number of people were using their iPhones from the safety of their couch during the Super Bowl. So if you are targeting mobile users, they would be seeing ads that were maybe not designed for their specific behavior. So Google also says that from a user behavior perspective, tablet and laptop segments are losing their distinction. So you will no longer be able to target separately to tablets and laptops. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can mark individual ads as mobile preferred, which means that if they're out and about, they'll see that ad, whether they're on a tablet or maybe on a laptop on a train or in a coffee shop. And it naturally goes along with this that if you're thinking about contextual strategy versus device strategy, you can create landing pages that make more sense for the action of the user rather than the device. So one of the things that people, I feel like I'm going for a long time on this, but we've had a ton of questions about this, and I'll just give you a few more thoughts about the way enhanced campaigns are going to work. But so the thing that people are most concerned about is bidding. So you will actually be able to create something called a mobile bid multiplier, which is based on the value of these users to you, so specifically to you, and it can be location based. So you could bid more for mobile users who are near your location, but there is no keyword level bid control. So this means you are going to lose the advantage of being able to bid lower on short tail keywords that people were previously using on mobile. This is the thing that's got really people just way up in arms because people are saying, like, you know, Google is doing this because they are trying to make mobile a bigger product for them, and so they're forcing everyone into doing mobile. It's pretty interesting. I mean, there's a huge kerfuffle all over the internet about this, but the truth is this is coming. So I'll talk a little bit about what you can do to prepare. Just for the purposes of what I'll talk about, I will assume that you already have mobile-specific campaigns set up now. If you don't, actually, you maybe sort of have a bit of an advantage because you will need to learn how to use this, but it will just be like learning any other skill. So, and there is actually a huge training center. I think it's something like google.com/AdWords/enhanced campaigns. It's very easy to find. So you have about 6 months to change, and they are suggesting, or they're letting people switch over as soon as in the next few weeks, and they're actually using some beta users right now. But you know, we suggest you really prepare for this. So the number one thing that you need to do is figure out what keywords you're going to keep, and then figure out what your bid multiplier settings are. So this will boil down to figuring out your average conversion rates for mobile and for desktop, and maybe creating extra campaigns for conversion rates that are on the high end or the low end. And the thing is, people are unhappy or people are happy, and we really do believe that this will simplify mobile strategy going forward. And there are some really cool reporting things that will come out of this, like Google is promising that there will be the ability to see attribution across devices and contexts. And like I said, there's a lot of grumbling that Google is doing this to drive up their revenue from mobile clicks, and that, yes, it will happen. But it's something that we need to prepare for, and it's exciting in a lot of ways. So I would love to field any more questions about this. We actually did have Google in our office right before they released this, getting us prepared. And at Trata, we actually have a huge advantage because a lot of the platform solutions who learned about this last week have to rebuild their product because they've really been pushing these separate campaigns and the complexity of having to have them. While we are training our optimizer team to do things by hand, which is the way we do things. So it's if you were a really advanced AdWords advertiser before doing really advanced mobile campaigns, you will feel a loss of control. And I'm wondering if Google will release some more things to support these types of advertisers. But for advertisers who are spending less time on mobile campaigns, this could actually simplify things and let us see things in more depth.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's going to be tons for us to chat about in regards to the enhanced campaigns. And actually, I mean, if it's something that people are really interested in, we could probably chat about it again down the road and probably devote more time to it in a webinar.
Yeah, I will cut myself off here. This is just this has been very much top of mind for myself and my team here, and for I know a lot of you as well.
Well, like you said, I mean, if you've already got your campaign set up, then yeah, it's going to be a ton of work.
Yep.
But good to know. Thanks, Anna. All right, so that's I mean that's the end of our pre-prepped little bit. I think honestly most questions we got fell into those categories, so that I mean that covered a ton of stuff. But we did have some really good questions that were pre-submitted that we wanted to chat about. One thing in particular was Google's AdWords certification course, because you would assume that if you're taking Google's classes, then you know everything you need to know about the class. But Christy had asked beforehand, does AdWords certification teach you everything there is to know?
So I'm curious to hear from you guys, Ryan and Ollie. Have you taken the certification course?
No, but we have some in the office who just got their certificate today, so that's pretty cool.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
actually,
that's exciting.
Jacqueline, who's our customer success manager, aka the Tank. Yeah, she was the first to get her AdWords certification, and she actually she was really happy with the course.
That's great. So I would say the answer is yes and no. It can definitely. So one thing I'll say is that the AdWords certification course is geared towards teaching agencies to be better about dealing with their clients. And another thing to consider is that it does come from Google. And while we over here at Trada are big fans of Google, don't forget that they are running a business, and so they are going to teach things in a certain way that's going to benefit them. So I myself am Google AdWords certified, and you will learn so much about the sort of nuts and bolts right from the horse's mouth about how you should do paid search and how you should optimize paid search campaigns, and also kind of what it's like to work in the field. But the other thing is that there are so many resources all over the web that can help you learn how to do AdWords. I mean, this is an example. We'll share this ebook with you. There are lots of books. There's I think it's called The Ultimate Guide to AdWords by Brad Geddes, who has been a Trada webinar guest. He's an official Google trainer. In terms of sort of keeping up with extremely, hypersensitive trends, I would suggest using resources like Search Engine Land and SEO Moz to learn things about paid search. I would suggest building your education around a lot of different types of resources, but having that AdWords certification is immensely valuable. It's really, I think, like $50 or something to get it. It does involve some real studying, so be prepared to hit the books.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add, I mean, just from our experience, make sure you go with Google's answers when you're studying for the exam. Because like I said, there's tons of information available. There are tons of ways to go about addressing some of these things, but Google, they have their way of doing things and they have their answers they want to hear. So make sure you read their info.
That is a very good point. When you take the exam, make sure you've actually studied for the exam. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are about paid search. You actually do need to know their answers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right, let's move along because we've got a bunch more to get through. So one from Lauren. Lauren was wondering if it's better to have many keywords or just a few good ones. So what's generally accepted as a decent click-through rate as well?
So this is one of my hands down favorite topics, and it's a great question. There is sometimes this perception that if you find the 20 really good keywords that really work for you, you are going to have the best paid search campaign ever. But I would ask you to think about the following thing. People search for things in a lot of different ways. So a really good example that my boss uses sometimes is that if I were to buy myself a handbag, I would type in the brand name of the handbag. I would type in details about it. I would have a lot more information. But if my boyfriend were going to buy me a handbag, he would type in like ladies' purse. where to buy ladies' purse. So
Staying
um,
with them?
well, not my boyfriend specifically. He actually knows what to type in. But there is this great diversity of the ways that people search for things, and your customers are probably more broad in the way that they search than you think. They come from different backgrounds, they think about things in different ways. So the way that I suggest building out your keywords list is to actually start with a humongous keyword list. I don't think your keyword list can be big enough. Now, keep an eye on it, because if there are keywords that aren't converting, or if there are keywords that are never going to be relevant for you, there are some things that you can do with them to make sure that they don't trigger ads so that you aren't paying for things that are totally irrelevant. But I suggest thinking about building ad groups around many, many different ways of thinking about things. We suggest breaking up ad groups. So if you think of just one, I'm going to use an e-commerce example here. Say that you sell a Nike running shoe, one specific Nike running shoe. I would suggest, if you want to have a crazy well-tuned campaign, having an ad group around the product itself. So Nike running shoe number 5551, whatever it's called, around theme. So Nike shoes for running, around concept, around terminology, an ad group around tail size. So you could have Nike shoe, or you could have Nike red running shoe that so-and-so wore, really long tail sizes and short tail sizes. And then also ad groups around the point in the buying cycle. So maybe a better example is, say you're selling a car. You could have the point in the buying cycle where people are starting to look for cars. So affordable cars, or cars that are good for safety. Or you could have the point in the buying cycle where people are ready to buy, where they're looking it up by the actual product name.
I
So
think,
there are, go ahead.
sorry, Anna, I'm just going to interrupt and say we've got a couple other questions, and I think this addresses something that someone else had asked, which was how can I be as targeted as possible and own my niche? So would you say that that's kind of part and parcel to the same concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suggest, when it comes to being targeted, I get a lot of questions about how can I be targeted? There's some questions that we talked about earlier that are about how do I make sure that I don't waste any money on irrelevant clicks? Now, in paid search, that's not really a reality. An average click-through rate, and it totally depends on the industry, but if you think that a click-through rate might be 2% and then a conversion rate might be 2%, that means a tiny percent of the people who see your ad are actually going to click and then are actually going to convert. So you actually do need to have a wealth of keywords, see what works, and then narrow it down from there, but don't feel like you need to make it too narrow. If you have keywords out there that are getting conversions, you want to find what those things are. And the best campaigns are ones that have a great breadth rather than have super highly targeted small keyword lists. And to address the question of how you can own your niche, I would say make sure that your niche isn't too small. If you have a product that is so unique that no one is searching for it, search may actually not be the best tool for you to use to advertise it. And a way to find out if your niche is big enough to drive enough volume to make search worth it is to use something called the external keyword tool, which you can use to type in a few of your most basic keywords and see what kind of search volume they get.
That's good advice. Now, you know what? We're gonna move along to some live Q&A questions here, because our chat is getting flooded with stuff.
I know, I'm seeing it too.
And one thing, we've actually had a bunch of questions about landing pages and conversion. So I'm just gonna quickly address that and ask. I'm gonna direct this one over at Ollie, and say, Eric is wondering, what are the best design guidelines for call to action placements on your page?
That's a good question. I'd say the copy on the button of your CTA is more relevant than the placement. It's a small factor, but the machine element, for Google, it's going to be looking at the text. So make sure the text on your CTA is not part of an image. It needs to be readable and tie it in with the keywords in your ad, so that's a little bit extra for your quality score. Um, the classic answer is place it above the fold, but that's not always possible. If you had a lead gen form, it could be long and then your button's going to appear below the fold. So a good idea there is to have a directional cue in the form header that kind of points down so people know that the CTA is down below. If you have a long page, then repeat your CTO as it goes down. But the best thing, like with everything, you want to test where you put it. We did a test on our pricing page where in the pricing grid, we had it at the bottom of the grid, and by moving it to the top, next to where the price was, it gave us a 30% conversion lift. We did a post about CTA placement recently, actually. I don't know if we can share the link now, or we'll do that. We'll do that later.
Yeah, we'll send it out afterwards.
Okay.
So I have a question for you, Ollie.
Yep.
You said sometimes it's not possible to put the CTA above the fold if you have a long lead form. And I learned from Brad Geddes, actually, that sometimes if you have a long lead form, in order to get people to not freak out and be like, I don't want to fill this out, he sometimes breaks up a lead form and has a button that says next. What do you think about moving to a next page with the continuation of the lead form from a conversion perspective?
It can be good because once people get invested from filling in the first part of the form, they're going to be more likely to complete the rest of it, and it will take away some of that fear of the form. It does also depend on the design of your pages, because if you're putting most of the information on the first page, your second page is going to be pretty sparse, most likely. One bad aspect of that is a lot of people will see it as a bit of a bait and switch, because you're making the form look short, but in reality it's not. So again, you have to test it.
That's a good point. People don't like to be tricked.
Yeah.
I guess.
I guess.
Maybe at Halloween.
So we've also got a lot of questions about budget and I mean how much they should be spending on their AdWords campaigns, what they should be spending on each click. So Anna, how much do you have to spend, or how many clicks do you need before you start making some decisions about what's working and what isn't working?
Sure. So this is a great question. There is a concept known as data velocity. And the idea here is that you need a certain amount of data to be able to make a smart decision. So we at Trada have a $3,000 a month minimum budget. And for a lot of smaller advertisers, they can find this to be frustrating. But the truth is, if you have a $3,000 a month budget, that means you're spending about $100 a day. And if you have clicks that are in the cents range or in the dollar range, you could be getting, if you consider that an average conversion rate is 2%, although of course many conversion rates are higher or lower, then that means that you are getting, if you're spending $100 a day, you could be getting about 2 conversions a day. Now, we suggest that you don't make any decisions about whether something is working or not until you have 100 conversions. So you won't be able to get enough data to be able to optimize whether your ads are working, whether your landing pages are working. And if your clicks are in the $6, $7 range, then you won't be able to get enough data velocity to make decisions at all. And so while it is possible, and I definitely don't want to say that it's not, but it is possible to have a successful AdWords campaign when you're spending, a few $100s a month, you probably won't be able to ever have enough data to optimize, and you probably won't be driving enough volume to be able to see a huge bump in your conversions. So as with all advertising, you really do have to spend money to make money. And no matter how well tuned our campaign is and how perfectly targeted our ads are, which again is a result of data velocity, you are still going to be getting a lot of clicks that aren't going to convert. And that just sort of has to be a reality when it comes to the way paid search works.
And on that note, a bunch of other people have also been asking about getting help with this. And so, Anna, you already mentioned that with Trada, I mean, you have a particular budget that customers have to come in and spend, but you are a professional service, and we're going to be talking about it a little bit at the end. Like you're going to have a few minutes to explain what Trada is, but just briefly, do you want to give like a Twitter 140 characters about what Trada is and how it helps?
Sure,
Someone?
absolutely. So Trada is really a solution for mid-market advertisers who are traditionally underserved by other solutions. There are solutions for small businesses and there are solutions for big companies. And what we've done is we have a community of paid search experts who we assign to your campaign, and they work in multiples. And because there are multiple people working, they have all these different perspectives and they can come up with all those different keywords for the people who are buying purses and the people who are buying Reed Krakoff handbags. So having this great breadth allows you to be able to very finely tune your campaign, get those quality scores down, and it's pay for performance. So actually these experts are paid when they beat conversion goals that you set. And this is completely market changing and groundbreaking. Pretty much no one else does it this way. So it's a great solution for those mid-market advertisers who feel like there isn't a solution for them.
And what about, I mean, sort of more, no, I won't say entry level, but let's say like smaller businesses who are wondering about making their AdWords campaigns more effective without breaking the bank. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing I definitely suggest when you are a smaller campaign with a smaller budget is to educate yourself as much as possible about the solutions that exist for you. You probably don't have a big enough budget to be able to work with an agency or benefit from an agency. There are a ton of free tools out there that can help you make really good decisions. And one of the things I suggest, especially if you're starting out in AdWords, is to use what I like to call the roller coaster campaign method, which is to
That's fun.
apply your budget to a very small set of targeted long tail keywords that are exact match and see what works, and then apply budget where you can. The only thing is, the thing you're going to be missing out on with a small budget is that data velocity, which is the thing that allows you to make decisions. This is the reason that big companies who are totally out of our reach, who are able to leverage big data, see just incrementally, what tiny little changes mean, are able to make really smart decisions when it comes to marketing. It's because they have this wealth of data to pull from. So I definitely do suggest if you're a smaller company with a smaller budget, there are definitely some things you can do, but just educate yourself everywhere. And one thing that's true for an advertiser of any size is that you should consider 5 to 10% of your budget to go to testing. So just maybe it can make it a little bit easier to swallow when 5 to 10% of your budget is going towards the ad that it's not performing as well, because you needed to find out that that ad didn't perform as well. And so if you consider 5 to 10% of your budget to be your testing budget, it can make you feel a little bit better about that.
Awesome. Now, sorry, I'm just reading through some questions, hence the delay here. We've got another one from Keith, and Keith is wondering how to create landing pages that Trada optimizers will utilize. Sorry, one sec. Yeah, sorry, seasonal landing pages versus static year-round campaigns. Should they have different tactics?
So
I'll just
yeah, I want
really,
to hear what Ollie says.
I'll just really quickly, because we're kind of running out of time. They should be completely different. Seasonal campaign is you need to communicate some urgency. So only 50 seats left for a webinar, or only 1 day left to get your holiday discount. So an evergreen page that's up for the whole year doesn't really have that urgency or time limited factor. So your seasonal campaigns are going to be completely different.
This is the thing that Amazon does really well. If you log into Amazon on December 19th, it will say you have 1 day left to get free Super Saver shipping.
Otherwise, you have lots of unhappy kids that don't get their present on time.
Exactly. Put pictures of crying kids on your landing page.
Now, I mean, on the same, I mean, similar topic, talking landing pages, Caitlin just asked, what are some best practices for landing page testing? And should I really be paying attention to the score of my landing pages in AdWords?
I'll jump into the first part of that. Best practices are really just a starting point, but the most important thing when beginning a test is to develop a hypothesis. So this is what you think will improve your conversion rate. Once you've got that written, then you can start working on how to achieve the goal of the hypothesis by making changes to your page. Um, the way I like to create one is to use user feedback. So if you have a live chat or survey widget on the page, then you can get really valuable insight into why people aren't converting. Maybe they can't figure out what the page is about, in which case your hypothesis would be by making our core value proposition more clear with the headline and subheader, more customers will understand what we do and stay on the page longer. Um, I mean, you want to keep testing this kind of thing, but I say user feedback is the best way to figure out what you're going to test.
I totally agree. And I have a very quick answer for the second part about paying attention to the landing page score in AdWords. So AdWords actually won't show you your individual quality score for landing pages. So you don't need to worry about that. You should have a good landing page so that you will, score high on that. Don't have a weird bridge page or phishing scheme, and you should be okay on the technical part of the landing page. But you actually cannot see that in AdWords.
Now, on I mean, similar note, I mean, you know what, we are totally out of time, but there's still just a couple more questions that I think, are
I'll
yeah,
stick around.
listeners would really like to hear. So we'll try and plow through a couple more. So quickly, Hugh asked, how can I use landing pages better to improve my quality scores? So Anna, you just pointed out you don't see the quality score for a landing page, but with that in mind, is there anything you can do to use the landing pages to improve your quality score?
Well, absolutely. So as we mentioned, landing pages are scored in two different ways. One is the just sort of technical score. They want to make sure that you're not some sort of internet predator who's creating a page full of ads or something stupid like that. And that's used just to penalize you if you do something bad. But then the other thing to think about is the landing page's relevance to your ad, to the keyword, and to the user search query. So one of the tactics I think works really well, especially if you have something like an e-commerce page, is to work backwards when building your ad groups. So take a look at your landing pages, pull language from your landing pages, and build your ad groups, your ads, and your keyword lists based on your landing pages. Now, if you're working in the other direction where you're putting together keywords and ads and ad groups and then building landing pages, just make sure that you have this common keyword. If you have a keyword in your ad, or sorry, if you have a keyword, the keyword should be in the ad, and that keyword should be on the landing page. And if you're doing that, you are giving yourself a good opportunity to have a high portion of your quality score that comes from landing pages.
Yeah, and just on the same question, it's not really about improving. Well, it's about stop getting dinged by Google. Um, Sometimes what they're looking for, if you have a lead gen form on your page, then you really need to increase their confidence in what you're doing. So you need a privacy policy, and I'd recommend putting that right next to the email field. And you often want a couple of links on your page. So I'd stick a terms and conditions link and the privacy policy. And for a better experience, you can pop them up in light boxes just to keep them on the page. But having a couple links is usually a good thing. I've heard stories of people getting dinged really badly if they don't have a privacy policy, if they have a form. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
From an SEO perspective, this can really help. Having your privacy policy is my understanding, although I am not an SEO expert.
Oh, really? I I did not know.
I'm an SEO fan.
Junkie. So Anna, thanks so much for asking, or I mean, for answering all these questions for everyone here. I mean, as our chat room is honestly flooded with questions, and a lot of them are really great. So I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. But who knows? Maybe we can do another AdWords webinar further down the road.
Well, and if you have questions that I didn't answer or that Ollie didn't answer, I will answer them. So please, you can email me directly. My email address is anna@trotta.com, and you can send me your question, and I'll make sure that it gets the right person or answer it personally. I really benefit so much from finding out what your questions are and what people in the market are asking, and it helps me greatly. So please, help us continue the conversation. You can also hit me up at Twitter at Anna F. Sawyer.
And likewise, Ollie at unbounce.com. So OLI at unbounce.com if you want to fire some landing page questions my way. That's totally cool.
And then, of course, I'll be sending the follow-up email. So, I mean, you can just reply to that. And that'll be from Ryan at unbounce.com. So quickly, I'll be sending this out in an email as well to people who are new to Unbounce. But we have a promo code, so you can sign up and use AdWords 503 to get 50% off the first 3 months of your subscription. Like I said, don't worry, I'll email it to you. And so I'm going to skip ahead to Trata. So Anna can now take a few minutes, talk about Trata, and give us the lowdown on what you do.
I promise I'll get through this very quickly. So if you could actually just go to the next slide, I will do this very quickly. So one thing that I think a lot of marketers don't realize is, and this is something that we talked about in the webinar, how important it is to have this great breadth of perspective when putting together your paid search campaign. If you are one single paid search expert, you probably know a lot about paid search, but you are choosing keywords and writing ads based on your own experiences. So the idea of crowdsourcing is the idea that many heads are better than one, and many different experts coming up with a solution together will collectively come up with a solution that works better than everything. So another thing is that you actually need to have visibility and control. If you don't understand the way that your AdWords campaign is working, you won't be able to inform your other marketing practices. And then finally, another element to having a really good paid search relationship with your provider is to have this idea of goal alignment. So if your relationship with your paid search provider was based on goal alignment and hinged on achieving goals that you set, you would have a much more effective paid search campaign. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, this is where I show you that you can have it all. So when you work with Trata, we assign a team of highly specialized experts to your paid search campaign. It can run in Google and on Bing, and we match them to your campaign based on their historical performance in our marketplace and based on their experience. And these are people who know how to do the work for your campaign. They do all the work of bid optimization and keyword build out and ad testing. You actually get to see all of the data, and we provide you with custom reporting. And most importantly, Trata is performance-based. So when you sign up with Trata, you work with us to set a cost per acquisition goal. You say, this is how much I'm willing to pay to sell a t-shirt on my website. And then our optimizers fight to beat those goals. They work really, really hard to make sure that they can optimize to get you conversions for less than the cost that you stated. And when they do, they keep the difference. So our goals are so totally aligned with yours. And if you want to go to the next slide. If you are interested in learning more, please go ahead and you can respond to the email that we will write later. You can say in the chat, I'd like a demo, and I will make sure to connect you with the right person. In fact, maybe that is actually the easiest thing to do. If you just want to write in the chat, I'd like a demo, I will make sure that you get hooked up. But as a next step, we give you this really cool free analysis where we take a look at your current AdWords and Bing campaigns, and we identify areas of opportunity, and we show you how we can help you. And even if you don't end up using Trata, you can take this to really work on how to improve your campaigns. So, just to kind of wrap everything up, as I mentioned, I'm really surrounded by expertise by working here at Trata. We have experts who live all around the world who are real AdWords experts. I mean, they are way smarter than me. And having that sort of wealth of expertise is something that is great when you're learning stuff on the internet and coming to webinars. But when you work with Trata, you can have these people working directly for you and working to beat your goals. It's really cool. We don't have any setup or management fees. Our payment model is just really different from anything you've ever seen before. So I'd love to continue the conversation. Again, please go ahead and reach out to me personally if you have any questions. And if you would like a demo, go ahead and type I'd like a demo into the chat box, and I'll make sure to set that up for you. So thanks so much, Rick and Ollie, for having, or sorry, Rick is not here. Thanks so much, Ryan and Ollie, for having me today. This was such a pleasure, and I love talking about AdWords. I loved everyone's questions. It seems like we have some really savvy marketers in here who are just really looking to attack those AdWords campaigns in 2013.
Yeah, agreed. We've got a pretty solid bunch here. So again, just to wrap it up, thanks so much for attending the webinar. I'll be sending out the recording either later today or tomorrow morning as soon as I can get it up with the slides and the links to the resources we were talking about.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Big attendance. So
High five.
yeah, self 5.
Self- I get to sell 5.
Yeah, Ryan 5.
I'm high-fiving myself.
Yeah,
High
that's
fiving
what
a
I was
million
doing.
angels. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank
Cheers.
you.